Your problem is probably not that life is too hard. Your problem is that it has become too easy in the wrong ways. That is the lesson Musonius Rufus would force modern people to hear. Because most people today are not being destroyed by pain. They are being softened by comfort. Not comfort in the deep human sense, safety, love, shelter, peace. He would not attack those. He would attack the other kind, the convenience that weakens your will, the indulgence that trains your impulses, the ease that slowly removes your ability to endure difficulty without panic, the endless availability of stimulation, pleasure, distraction, relief, and escape. Musonius Rufus would say this is one of the greatest misunderstandings in human life. People think comfort makes them happy. Often it makes them fragile, because whatever you constantly rely on begins to rule you. If you need ideal conditions to work, conditions own you. If you need emotional certainty to act, mood owns you. If you need constant pleasure to feel okay, appetite owns you. If you need convenience at every step, difficulty owns you the moment it appears. That is the trap. What you cannot go without, you are not using. It is using you. This is why modern weakness often looks so strange. A person can have more access, more tools, more convenience, more information, more comfort than almost anyone in history and still feel exhausted, anxious, undisciplined, overstimulated, and internally weak. Why? Because abundance without training produces dependence. And dependence feels terrible from the inside. That is why so many people wake up already tired. Not because they did too much, but because their mind and body have become accustomed to constant ease and constant stimulation, and now ordinary effort feels like suffering. Musonius Rufus would say that once this happens, a person begins confusing discomfort with danger, and that confusion ruins lives. A little hunger feels intolerable. A little boredom feels unbearable. A little silence feels threatening. A little effort feels oppressive. A little uncertainty feels like a crisis. A little delay feels like deprivation. This is what excess comfort does. It lowers your threshold for distress until normal life starts feeling hostile. And once that happens, your character begins to reorganize itself around avoidance. You avoid what is hard. You delay what is boring. You escape what is quiet. You seek relief faster than meaning. You choose convenience over discipline so often that eventually the choice disappears and convenience becomes your master. That is why Musonius Rufus matters so much right now, because he understood that the purpose of voluntary difficulty is not suffering. It is freedom. That sounds backwards until you see it clearly. The person who can tolerate discomfort is free in ways the comfort-addicted person can never be. The person who can be hungry without collapsing, bored without panicking, alone without self-destructing, uncomfortable without quitting, and uncertain without begging for immediate relief, that person has options. Real options. Because their life is not organized around avoiding every unpleasant feeling. Most people do not realize how much of their life is controlled by that one instinct: avoid discomfort. That instinct shapes more decisions than people want to admit. It shapes what work they do, what relationships they tolerate, what truth they refuse to say, what bodies they live in, what goals they postpone, what standards they lower, what habits they never build. Not because they lack intelligence, because they have become too uncomfortable with discomfort. And that is why so many people keep saying they need more motivation when what they really need is more tolerance for friction. This is one of the most important distinctions Musonius Rufus would make. Motivation is unreliable. Training is reliable. The person who depends on feeling good before acting will act only when conditions flatter them. The person who has trained themselves to move under imperfect conditions becomes dangerous in the best sense of that word. Because now weather does not decide, mood does not decide. Convenience does not decide. Comfort does not decide. Principle decides. That is strength. Not intensity, not aggression, not appearance. The ability to do what matters when ease is unavailable. Musonius would say that modern people are surrounded by invisible forms of softness that look harmless because they are socially normal. Endless scrolling, instant entertainment, constant snacking, temperature control for every feeling, immediate delivery, infinite algorithmic stimulation, no silence, no waiting, no friction, no deliberate hardship. And because this environment feels normal, people stop seeing what it is doing to them. It is shrinking their endurance. It is lowering their threshold. It is making ordinary discipline feel extreme. It is making self-command feel unnatural. It is making the basic requirements of a strong life, restraint, patience, repetition, effort, simplicity, feel almost violent to the untrained self. That is why comfort addiction is so dangerous. It does not announce itself as addiction. It presents itself as preference. You say, I just work better when I feel like it. I just need the right setup. I just need to be in the mood. I just need more rest first. I just need a little relief. I just need today to be easier. And maybe sometimes that is true. But if that voice rules you consistently, then what sounds like self-care may actually be self-erosion. Because Musonius Rufus would ask a hard question. Are you preserving yourself, or are you weakening yourself in the name of ease? That question matters because there is a form of care that strengthens and a form of care that sedates. Strengthening care asks more of you. Sedating care protects you from every strain. Strengthening care enlarges capacity. Sedating care reduces it. And once you understand that, you start seeing your habits differently. A cold shower is not just a cold shower. It is practice in not obeying preference. Finishing the workout when you no longer feel like it is not just fitness. It is proof that discomfort is survivable. Saying no to the impulse is not deprivation. It is evidence that appetite is not the ruler. Sitting in silence is not emptiness. It is training in non-dependence. Doing the hard thing first is not punishment. It is identity formation. This is why voluntary simplicity matters. Musonius did not praise simplicity because deprivation is holy. He praised it because complexity and excess often create hidden chains. The more things you need to feel okay, the less free you are. The more layers of comfort required before you can function, the more vulnerable you become. The more dependent your peace is on conditions, the more unstable your peace is by design. That is the secret cost of comfort. It makes you effective only inside favorable conditions. But life does not promise favorable conditions. That is why people collapse the moment life becomes inconvenient. The delayed flight, the financial pressure, the hard season, the lonely week, the setback, the rejection, the failure, the illness, the discomfort they cannot immediately remove. If you have not trained for friction, friction feels like the end of the world. But if you have trained with friction, then difficulty no longer shocks your identity. You recognize it. You remain yourself inside it. That is the gift of anti-comfort, not becoming harsh. Becoming less easily ruled. This is where people often misunderstand Stoicism. They think it is anti-pleasure. It is not. It is anti-slavery. If you can enjoy comfort without needing it, Stoicism has no quarrel with you. If you can use pleasure without becoming governed by it, there is no problem. The problem begins when comfort ceases to be a gift and becomes a requirement. Because now your life is built around maintaining sensitivity instead of expanding capacity. And capacity is what Musonius cared about. Capacity to endure. Capacity to choose well. Capacity to delay gratification. Capacity to stay decent under strain. Capacity to remain free under pressure. That is what makes a person powerful. Not luxury. Not convenience. Not unlimited access to relief. Those things can be pleasant, but they rarely build character unless they are held lightly. So what should a person actually do? Not something theatrical. Something structural. Reduce unnecessary dependence. Choose one comfort that has become too powerful and loosen its hold. Eat more simply sometimes. Train when you do not feel inspired. Leave the phone alone longer. Sit in boredom without escaping. Take the walk without stimulation. Do the task without the perfect setup. Let yourself experience inconvenience without translating it into suffering. That is how strength returns. Quietly. Not through speeches, through exposure. Your nervous system learns, I can survive this. Your mind learns, I do not need immediate relief. Your character learns, discomfort is not a command. And once that lesson lands deeply enough, you stop waiting for life to become easier before you begin living well. That is when real dignity starts. Because the weak person is not the one who feels discomfort. The weak person is the one who must obey it. Musonius Rufus wants to break that obedience. He wants a person who can remain clear under strain. Under strain, steady under inconvenience. Disciplined without applause. Simple without feeling deprived. Strong without needing hardness to be visible. That is why comfort can be so dangerous. Not because pleasure is evil. Because untrained pleasure makes people easy to control, easy to distract, easy to pacify, easy to weaken, easy to sell to, easy to soothe, easy to own. The person who cannot function without comfort becomes dependent on whoever provides it, but the person who can endure less becomes much harder to manipulate. That is freedom, and that is why voluntary simplicity is not a backward lifestyle. It is a form of psychological power. So if you feel weak, unmotivated, overindulgent, easily distracted, constantly tired, and less disciplined than you know you should be, do not only ask what is wrong with your will. Ask what your comfort has been training you to become. Because your weakness may not be coming from lack of ambition. It may be coming from too much ease. And the good news is that strength does not require a dramatic reinvention. It begins the moment you stop treating discomfort like an enemy and start treating it like training. That is Musonius Rufus. But not a philosopher of suffering, a philosopher of freedom through discipline. And for the modern person, that may be exactly the medicine.